The potential Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade could have repercussions for fertility treatments such as in vitro fertilization. Studies show about 2 in every 100 children born in the U.S. today are conceived through IVF, and 33% of Americans have turned to fertility treatments or know someone who has. For more on this, I'm joined by Dr. Stephanie Gustin. She's the medical director for the Heartland Center for Reproductive Medicine in Nebraska. That's one of the states where abortion is likely to be banned. Dr. Gustin, thank you for joining us. And let's have a very basic introductory conversation, the birds and the bees, if you will, of IVF. How does it work for our audience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So in essence, in a normal menstrual cycle, a woman's brain secretes a hormone that recruits one follicle or egg to ovulate and either get pregnant or not. In IVF, we use those same hormones in the form of injections to recruit as many eggs as we can in one single menstrual cycle that the woman's ovaries have available to them, with a series of shots and injections for about 2 weeks. And once those eggs or follicles are big enough, we're able to retrieve them, take them out of the body, and then fertilize those eggs in the laboratory. Following that, well, let me digress for a second. Normal human fertilization is about 70 to 85%. So we don't even actually see 100% fertilization. And then from there, with advancing technologies, we have the ability to culture embryos all the way to days 5, 6, and 7, which is the blastocyst stage. And this has allowed us to choose the best embryo first. It's also allowed us to safely transfer one embryo at a time to reduce the risk of complications in pregnancy. And it also allows us to test embryos for more information such as genetics or diseases or things like that.
And I mean, part of that process, I just want to say, because, when people think about, the best possible embryo, a lot of that has to do with the embryo that would survive, not that, testing, selecting for certain traits or anything like that, because I know that people think
You're exactly right. Typically speaking, from a fertilized egg to a blastocyst that we're able to use, we see about 50 to 60% will actually make it to that point, which is why the statistics shows that about only 20% of fertilized eggs or less will actually result in the birth of a child.
Well, let's get to, the news and the concerns over Roe v. Wade being overturned. What would be the impact or the potential impact in certain states if IVF, if Roe was overturned to the IVF process?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So it's going to be a state-by-state decision, and I think there's going to be a lot of nuance and variance, but I think it's really important for everyone who's listening to understand that words are powerful and language matters. So more recently, a bill was proposed in Nebraska that defined life at the time of fertilization, and that any destruction of life, intended or not, was a punishable offense with an equivalent of manslaughter and could potentially cause someone associated with that a 20-year prison sentence. So when we work with fertilized eggs all the time, right, who decides the science, which we understand really well, that a very small percentage of initially fertilized eggs are going to make it to embryos? Who decides if that's okay, or if now the embryologists, the physicians, the people involved in the clinics are now culpable for something that we know to be scientifically true?
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine just the cost of it too. If you have to keep all of those embryos that wouldn't even be viable, alive, quote unquote alive, or you have to keep them frozen, or you can't discard them, there might be an implication to that. But what's the impact to, say, patients who've already frozen their eggs and patients who've already created embryos, or people who haven't created embryos but have just frozen eggs?
Right. I certainly don't want to raise alarm bells. People who have frozen eggs or embryos, those embryos and eggs are safe. So that's great. I think the question remains state by state and the priorities of those local legislatures in supporting fertility care or not, is how we're going to be able to use those in the future. Are we going to be able to continue doing IVF as we do it now, which is my prayer? Or are there going to be restrictions on the number of eggs we can thaw and fertilize and the amount of testing or culturing we can do on embryos? I think that's what's going to come into question, and that may impact the likelihood of success for a couple.
Wow. So the impact would be in terms of what doctors and treatment centers can offer the patients?
Right. So, for example, in Italy, it historically was a country that did not allow fertilization of more than 4 eggs at a time. And so any additional eggs would be frozen as eggs. They would fertilize 4 and then transfer up to 4 embryos. But you can imagine if we did that in a young woman, she could thereby unintentionally conceive 4+ babies, right? Or in an older woman could have to go through multiple cycles of failed conception simply because she has a large quantity of eggs that are not normal.
Right. I mean, and the cost is just unfathomable for people who haven't been through it. I know many who have, and it's already very unaffordable. Can't imagine if you have to go over and over. Dr. Stephanie Gustin, thank you so much for all that insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.